In 1977, a guy in his early 30s spent his entire album royalty check on a used race car. Not a house, not a boat, not stocks, a beat-up, accident-scarred Ferrari that most collectors at the time considered a liability, something you'd struggle to even give away. He felt like an idiot the day he signed the check. Today, that same car is one of the most valuable objects on 4 wheels on planet Earth. And the man who bought it wasn't a car dealer, wasn't an oil heir, wasn't a Formula One driver. He was the drummer of Pink Floyd. This is the story of Nick Mason's Ferrari 250 GTO, how a teenage obsession turned into one of the great automotive gambles of the 20th century, and why this specific car, out of only 39 ever built, might be the single most important 250 GTO left on Earth. If you want more stories like this, the real history behind the cars that turned into legends by accident, hit subscribe. And if you're watching on your TV right now, grab your remote, go to the channel page, and hit that subscribe button. It actually matters. It's not just a thing we say. 2. Act 1. The Kid at Brands Hatch. Rewind to the early 1960s. Nick Mason is a teenager in England, years away from Pink Floyd, years away from Dark Side of the Moon, years away from being one of the best-selling drummers in music history. He's just a kid who likes cars. And one day, he's standing at the fence at Brands Hatch, watching a race. A Ferrari comes through. Low, wide, that unmistakable V12 sound bouncing off the trees. It's not gliding through the corner. It's fighting through it. Sliding, growling, alive. That one moment stuck with him. Mason has said later in life that seeing a 250 GTO race at Brands Hatch is where his entire car obsession started. Not a poster, not a magazine, a real GTO, being driven the way it was built to be driven, hard and a little bit dangerous. Here's the detail that makes this story feel like fate instead of coincidence. The exact car he saw racing that day is the same car he would eventually own. Chassis number 377 GT. The kid at the fence ends up, years later, holding the keys. That's not the kind of thing you can plan. That's the kind of thing that just happens once in a lifetime, if you're lucky. 3. Act 2. What the car actually was before Mason ever touched it. Before we get back to Mason, you need to understand what this specific car had already been through. Because a 250 GTO isn't a trophy that sat in a showroom, it's a war veteran. Chassis 377 GT was completed and delivered in June 1962 to Jacques Swatters, who ran a Belgian racing outfit called Écurie Francorchamps. This wasn't a car built for a collector's garage. It was built to be thrown into corners at 150 miles an hour by professional drivers, for money, in front of crowds. And that's exactly what happened. Just weeks after delivery, this car lined up at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. In June 1962, the single hardest endurance race in the world at the time, wearing race number 22. It finished 3rd overall and 2nd in its class. For a road-legal GT car racing against purpose-built prototypes, that's an extraordinary result. That was just the beginning. Over 1962 and 1963, this car raced across Europe. The Tour de France automobile, races at Montlhéry, Zandvoort, Zolder, even as far as the Angola Grand Prix. It picked up something like 10 class and overall wins across its career. This wasn't a garage queen. This was a working race car with a real resume. In 1964, ownership passed to a driver named Peter Clark, who kept campaigning it. Nürburgring, Spa, Silverstone, Daytona, Sebring, some of the most demanding circuits that exist. And here's the part that matters for what comes later. This car crashed multiple times. Sources point to at least 3 serious accidents during its racing life. By the late 1960s, it needed a full restoration just to be presentable again, and in 1969, it was rebuilt back to its original 1962 Le Mans specification. So by the time Nick Mason came looking for it, this wasn't a pristine museum piece. This was a scarred, rebuilt, well-used race car that had already lived an entire life before he ever got near it. That matters, because it changes the whole emotional shape of what happens next. 4. Act 3. The purchase that looked insane at the time. Fast forward to 1973, Pink Floyd releases Dark Side of the Moon. Tweet, you know anything about that album, you know what it did. It stayed on the Billboard charts for something like 15 years. It made Pink Floyd and it made the people in the band seriously wealthy for the first time in their careers. Mason took some of that money and in 1977 bought his childhood obsession. Reports put the price at around £35,000, somewhere around $44,000 at the time. Now here's the thing you have to understand about that number, because if you only hear $44,000, it sounds like a bargain. It wasn't. Not in 1977. In 1977, nobody wanted a 250 GTO. This was not yet a legendary object. It was, in the eyes of most people in the car world at the time, an old, crashed, obsolete Italian race car that happened to be pretty. Earlier in that same decade, GTOs had genuinely changed hands for as little as $3,500, less than a used sedan. These weren't investment pieces. These were just old race cars nobody had a use for anymore. So when Mason wrote that check, by his own admission, he felt stupid. He's talked about this openly. The feeling of having just handed over a serious chunk of money for what most people considered scrap with a nice body. And that's really the heart of this story. This wasn't a shrewd investor spotting an undervalued asset. This was a guy chasing a memory from when he was a teenager standing at a fence, willing to look foolish to get it. There's another layer to this that a lot of people don't know. You couldn't just walk up with cash and buy a 250 GTO when they were new. And even years later, ownership of these cars was something the Ferrari world paid close attention to. Enzo Ferrari himself was known to personally vet who was allowed to buy one when they were new. This wasn't a car sold to just anyone with a checkbook. By the time Mason bought his, that level of gatekeeping had faded, but the mystique hadn't. Owning a GTO put you in a very small, very specific club, whether or not anyone was checking your credentials at the door anymore. 5. Act 4. Why this car is actually special mechanically. Let's talk about what makes a 250 GTO worth talking about in the first place, because the money is only half the story. Only 36 were built between 1962 and 1964. Not 36,000, 36. Some accounts round that up slightly depending on how you count later variants, but the number is in that tiny neighborhood. For comparison, Ferrari builds more cars than that in a single week today. Under the hood is a 3-liter V12, the Tipo 168, the same fundamentally race-proven architecture used in Ferrari's Testa Rossa Le Mans winners. It's an all-aluminum engine, dry sump, fed by 6 twin-choke Weber carburetors lined up across the top like a row of trumpets. Output was around 300 horsepower at 7,500 RPM. That doesn't sound enormous by today's standards. Plenty of family SUVs make more power now. But this engine weighed a fraction of what a modern engine weighs, and it was bolted into a car that tipped the scales at under a ton. The body, shaped by Giotto Bizzarrini and refined by Sergio Scaglietti, wasn't styled to look pretty first and fast second. It was tested in a wind tunnel at Pisa University specifically to keep the car planted at speed. This was one of the first Ferraris where aerodynamics were treated as seriously as horsepower. Every curve on that body has a spot job to do. And here's a detail that always gets people. The dashboard. Barely trimmed, simple gauges, exposed metal. Nothing soft, nothing plush. This wasn't a car built to coddle a driver on a Sunday cruise. It was built to be light, to be fast, and to survive 24 hours of flat-out racing at Le Mans. Comfort was never the assignment. That combination, vanishingly small production numbers, a race-bred V12, real motorsport pedigree, and a body shaped by wind tunnel testing instead of guesswork, is why the 250 GTO isn't just an old Ferrari. It's considered by a lot of historians to be the high watermark of front-engine Ferrari racing design. Full stop. 6. Act 5. What this car is worth today and why nobody actually knows. Here's where the numbers start to get genuinely absurd. By the 1990s, 250 GTOs were trading hands for around $13 million. In 2014, one example sold at auction for $38 million. In 2018, a different 250 GTO, chassis 415-3 GT, a 1963 car with its own serious racing history, including a Tour de France automobile win, sold in a private deal for a reported $70 million to American businessman David McNeil, founder of WeatherTech. That sale is widely regarded as the benchmark, the number that put the entire model into a completely different financial universe than any other car on the planet. Now, important distinction, because getting this wrong would be sloppy. That $70 million sale is not Mason's car. That's a different chassis entirely. Mason's GTO, the 3757 GT, has never been sold since he bought it in 1977. It's not on the market. It's not for sale, which means there's no confirmed sale price for his specific car at all. But here's why that actually makes the story better, not weaker. With only 36 of these ever built, and with the confirmed benchmark for the model sitting at $70 million, informed estimates put Mason's own GTO, with its Le Mans podium history and unbroken ownership record, in that same rarefied territory. Some specialists in the classic Ferrari market would argue it's worth more than the benchmark car, precisely because of its documented, uninterrupted history. Nobody can put a hard number on it, because Mason has never once tested the market, and when the owner refuses to sell, the number stays theoretical, which, in the collector car world, usually means the real number is even higher than anyone's willing to say out loud. That's the twist most people miss. The most valuable version of an already priceless car might be the one that's never changed hands. 7. Act 6. This isn't a garage ornament. Here's the part that separates Mason from almost every other owner of a car this valuable. He actually drives it. Most $70 million objects live in climate-controlled storage, wheeled out for photographs twice a decade. Mason's GTO has appeared at the Goodwood Revival, competing, not parked, competing. Decades after he bought it, he's raced it, driven it in anger, treated an irreplaceable piece of automotive history like what it actually was built to be, a race car. He even wrote a book about his relationship with cars like this one, called Into the Red, documenting exactly this kind of hands-on ownership. This is a man who understood that a museum piece behind velvet rope isn't honoring what the car is. Driving it is. That's the part of this story that should stick with you. Everybody talks about the number, 70 million, 13 million, 44,000. But the real story here isn't the price tag. It's that a teenager who stood at a fence at Brands Hatch, watching a car scream past, spent decades of his life making sure that exact car never stopped doing what it was born to do. 8. Closing. Wrap up. So here's where this leaves us. A car nobody wanted in the 70s. A purchase that made the buyer feel foolish the day he made it. A childhood memory chased down and actually caught. And a value today that nobody can even put an honest number on, because the one man who could sell it simply won't. That's rarer than the car itself, honestly. In a world where everything eventually gets sold to the highest bidder, Nick Mason just didn't. What do you think? Is a car like this worth more sitting in a private collection being actually driven? Or would you rather see something this historically important out where the public can see it? Did we miss a detail about this car's history that you think deserves to be in here? Drop it in the comments. Subscribe if you want more of these deep dives into the cars that turned into legends almost by accident. And hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. See you on the next ride, where we might just find out that somebody's garage is hiding something even crazier than a $70 million Ferrari, and they've never told a soul.